The silver powder dissolving into the Vampire King's wine would have killed him in seconds, and I was the only one in the restaurant who saw it happen. If you want to hear more stories like this, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment telling me where you're listening from right now. My name is Elena Moretti, and I never believed in vampires until the night I saved one's life. The Crimson Rose wasn't the kind of restaurant where waitresses like me usually worked. Crystal chandeliers, wine lists longer than my rent bill, customers who wore more money on their wrists than I'd see in a year. But my father's medical debts weren't going to pay themselves, and the tips here kept the collectors from my door. It was nearly midnight when he walked in. Table 12, corner booth. Perfect view of the entire dining room, back to the wall, the seat of someone who expected danger. He wore black, perfectly tailored, and moved with a grace that made every other person in the restaurant look clumsy by comparison. Dark hair, sharp features, and eyes the color of smoke and shadows. Even from across the room, I felt the weight of his presence like a hand pressed against my chest. "Who is that?" I whispered to Marcus, the restaurant's manager and sommelier. Marcus's expression went carefully blank. "Mr. Dante Bloodstone. Very important client. VIP treatment, discretion required." His smile was tight. "I'll handle his wine service personally." Something in his tone made my skin prickle. I watched Marcus select a bottle from the private reserve, a wine that probably cost more than my car. He moved through the preparation ritual with practiced elegance, but there was something off about his movements, too deliberate, too focused. When he thought no one was looking, his hand slipped into his jacket pocket. My angle from the service station gave me a perfect view. I saw him palm something small, a vial maybe, or a packet. Saw the way his fingers moved over the wine glass, saw the faint shimmer of powder dissolving into the dark red liquid. My heart stopped. I didn't know who Dante Bloodstone was. Didn't know why Marcus would poison him, but I knew what I'd seen. And I knew I had seconds to decide. The smart choice was to stay silent, keep my head down. Not my problem, not my business. But I'd watched my father die slowly, poisoned by cancer while I stood helpless beside his bed. I couldn't watch someone else die, not when I could stop it. I grabbed a water pitcher and moved toward table 12. Marcus was already there, presenting the wine with a sommelier's flourish. "A 1947 Chateau Margaux, Mr. Bloodstone. I think you'll find it exceptional." Dante Bloodstone's eyes, those impossible gray eyes, fixed on the glass. He reached for it with pale, elegant fingers. I didn't think. I just moved. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." I lurched forward, pitcher tilting, water cascading across the table in a spectacular flood. The wine glass toppled, spilling its poisoned contents across the white tablecloth in a spreading crimson stain. Marcus's face went white, then red with fury. "You clumsy." "I'm so sorry, sir." I grabbed napkins, blotting frantically at the mess. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold them. "I'll get you another glass immediately. I'm so sorry." But I wasn't looking at Marcus. I was looking at the spilled wine, at the faint metallic shimmer in the liquid where it pooled, at the way it seemed to smoke slightly where it touched the silver candlestick holder. Silver. The powder had been silver. When I finally dared to look up, Dante Bloodstone was staring directly at me. Not at the mess. Not at Marcus. At me. His eyes were ancient, predatory, knowing, and in that moment, I realized 3 things. First, vampires were real. Second, I'd just saved the Vampire King's life. Third, I'd made a very powerful enemy, because Marcus's expression, when he looked at me, promised murder. "It's quite all right," Dante said softly, his voice like velvet over steel. "Accidents happen," but his gaze never left mine, and I saw something flicker in those smoke-gray eyes. Recognition. Understanding. He knew. He knew I'd saved him, and he knew I'd seen something I shouldn't have. "Marcus," Dante continued, still watching me with that unsettling intensity, "I think I'll take my wine to go. And please," his smile was cold and sharp, "give this young woman my compliments. Her timing is impeccable. My shift ended at 2 a.m. I should have been relieved to leave." Instead, I was terrified, because Marcus had watched me like a hawk all night. And when I finally walked out the back door into the dark alley behind the restaurant, I knew I wasn't going home safely. I was right. Marcus was waiting in the shadows, and his eyes, when they caught the light, glowed red. You saw something. Marcus's voice echoed in the alley, too calm, too controlled. He stepped out of the shadows, and I backed up until my spine hit the brick wall. I don't know what you're talking about. My voice shook, despite my best effort to sound confident. I spilled a glass of wine, that's all. Don't lie to me. He moved closer, and I saw it clearly now. The red glow in his eyes, the way his canines had lengthened into points. You deliberately knocked that glass over. You saw me put the silver in the wine. My heart hammered so hard I thought it would burst through my chest. Please, I won't say anything. I don't even know who that man was. The Vampire King. Marcus's smile was cold and terrible. You saved the Vampire King's life. Do you have any idea what you've done? What that's cost me? Vampire King. The words should have sounded insane. But looking at Marcus's inhuman eyes, at the predatory grace in his movements, I knew it was true. All of it was true. I didn't mean to interfere, I whispered. I couldn't let someone die. How noble. Marcus was right in front of me now, close enough that I could feel the unnatural cold radiating from his body. And how unfortunate for you. Because now you're a witness, a liability, and I can't let you live knowing what you know. His hand shot out, gripping my chin with bruising force, tilting my head to expose my throat. Look at me. I couldn't help it. My eyes locked onto his, and I felt something pressing against my mind, like invisible fingers trying to pry open a door. Forget what you saw tonight, Marcus commanded, his voice resonating with an otherworldly power. Forget the wine, forget the silver. You saw nothing unusual. Nothing at all. The pressure in my mind intensified, painful, insistent. But beneath it, something else stirred. Something that felt like heat, like light, pushing back against the invasion. I said forget, Marcus snarled, his grip tightening. She can't. The voice came from behind Marcus, cold as winter frost and sharp as broken glass. Dante Bloodstone stood at the alley entrance, perfectly still, perfectly calm. But there was something in his posture, something in the way the shadows seemed to bend toward him, that screamed danger. Marcus released me instantly, stepping back. My lord, I was just attempting to compel a witness to murder, Dante finished, moving forward with that same inhuman grace. Attempting to erase evidence of your treason. Should I continue listing your crimes, Marcus? Or shall we skip to the part where you run? I serve the true vision of vampire rule. Marcus spat. Not your weak treaty with mortals. Not your pathetic... He didn't get to finish. Dante moved faster than my eyes could follow, and suddenly Marcus was on his knees. Dante's hand wrapped around his throat. You serve nothing, Dante said softly. Not anymore. What happened next was too fast. Too violent for me to fully process. Marcus fought back, supernatural speed and strength making them blur together. But Dante was faster, stronger, older. Within seconds, Marcus was unconscious on the ground, and Dante stood over him without a single hair out of place. Then, those storm-gray eyes turned to me. You're not compelled, he said. And it wasn't a question. He tried to make you forget, and you resisted. I don't understand. My legs felt weak. What's happening? What are you? I think you already know. He moved closer, and I should have been terrified, should have run, but something in his eyes held me frozen. The question is, what are you? I'm nobody. Just a waitress. Nobody doesn't resist vampire compulsion. He studied me with unsettling intensity. Nobody sees through our glamour, notices details trained hunters miss. You're something more, Elena Moretti. You just don't know it yet. He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. What happens now? I asked, surprised my voice worked at all. Now I take you somewhere safe. He gestured to a black car idling at the alley entrance. I hadn't even heard it arrive. You witnessed an assassination attempt on the Vampire King. That makes you either an invaluable witness or a target for elimination. depending on who finds you first. And if I refuse? His smile was sad. Then Marcus's allies will find you within the hour, and they won't be as merciful as he was. I looked at the unconscious vampire at my feet, at the scratch marks on the wall where he'd slammed me, at Dante Bloodstone, the vampire king, offering his hand like a gentleman from another century. I had a choice. Trust the monster I'd saved, or face the monsters hunting me alone. I took his hand. His skin was cold, but his grip was steady. And as he led me to the car, I felt the strangest sensation. Not fear, exactly, but recognition. Like something in me had been waiting for this moment, waiting for him. "Where are you taking me?" I asked, as the car pulled away from the restaurant. Dante looked at me, and for just a moment, something flickered in those ancient eyes, something almost human. "Home," he said simply, "to my estate, where I can keep you alive long enough to understand what you are, and why you're the first mortal in 3 centuries who could save my life." The city lights blurred past the window as we drove into the darkness, and somewhere in my chest, beneath the fear and confusion, something whispered that I'd just crossed a threshold I could never uncross. My old life was over. Whatever came next would be written in shadows and blood. Dante's estate wasn't what I expected. I'd imagined something gothic and brooding. Stone towers, iron gates, maybe some gargoyles. Instead, the mansion was elegant and modern, all clean lines and floor-to-ceiling windows that should have made vampires nervous. But then, I supposed when you were powerful enough, you didn't need to hide in shadows. "This way." Dante led me through halls decorated with art that probably belonged in museums. "My inner circle is waiting. They need to hear what happened tonight." "Your inner circle?" My voice echoed in the vast space. "The vampires I trust." He paused, glancing back at me. A very short list. The room he brought me to looked like a war council. A massive table dominated the center, surrounded by beings that radiated the same predatory grace as Dante. 4 vampires stood as we entered, their eyes immediately locking onto me with varying degrees of suspicion and curiosity. "A mortal?" A woman with silver-white hair raised an elegant eyebrow. "You brought a mortal here?" "Elena Moretti saved my life tonight," Dante said flatly. "She witnessed Marcus attempt to poison me with silver, and she's immune to compulsion." The room went completely silent. "Impossible," a male vampire with dark skin and gold eyes breathed. "No mortal is immune. Test her yourself, Sebastian." Dante gestured to me. "Elena, look at him." Sebastian moved closer, his eyes beginning to glow with that same red light Marcus's had. "Forget you saw vampires tonight. You're very tired. You want to go home and sleep." The pressure came again, that invasive feeling of fingers prying at my mind. But just like before, something inside me pushed back. Heat rose in my chest, spreading outward like a shield. "It's not working," I said, confused by my own words. "I can feel you trying, but it's like there's a wall." Sebastian stepped back, looking at Dante with something like awe. "A natural immunity. I haven't seen that in 300 years. "Neither have I," Dante said quietly, "which means Elena is either descended from the old bloodlines or something else entirely." He turned to me. "Tell me about your family, your parents, your grandparents. Any stories about unusual abilities?" I thought back, searching through memories I'd never considered important. My father was normal, worked construction. But my grandmother, I frowned. She used to say strange things. Know things before they happened. People called her crazy, said she saw things that weren't there. "A seer," the silver-haired woman breathed. "You're descended from seers." "The seer bloodlines died out centuries ago," Sebastian protested. "Clearly not all of them." Dante's eyes never left mine, and the intensity of his gaze made my skin flush. "Elena, seers were mortals with psychic abilities. They could see the future, read intentions, resist supernatural influence. Vampires hunted them to extinction because they were too dangerous. They could expose us, predict our movements, couldn't be controlled. So I'm... what? Psychic? The word felt absurd in my mouth. Potentially. If the bloodline's strong enough. Dante moved closer, and I caught the scent of him. Something like winter air and old books. Have you ever had visions? Dreams that came true? No. Never. But even as I said it, something flickered at the edge of my awareness. A feeling. A knowing. I looked at Dante, and suddenly I saw silver flashing in darkness. Dante's face twisted in pain. Blood. So much blood. A woman's laugh, cold and triumphant. The king is dead. Long live the new order. I gasped, staggering backward. Sebastian caught me before I fell. What did you see? Dante's voice was sharp with urgency. You. Someone's going to kill you. A woman. The vision was already fading, slipping away like water through my fingers. I can't remember. But it felt real. It felt like it's going to happen. The vampires exchanged worried glances. The abilities are awakening, the silver-haired woman said. Being near so many vampires, near so much supernatural energy, it's triggering her dormant gifts. Dante studied me with an expression I couldn't read. Then she stays here, under my protection. If she's seeing threats against me, I need her close. And if she's the threat? Sebastian asked quietly. If this is all an elaborate, she's not. Dante's voice held absolute certainty. I've lived 7 centuries, Sebastian. I know genuine courage when I see it. She had nothing to gain by saving me and everything to lose. She's not our enemy. No. A new voice purred from the doorway. But she's certainly a complication. A woman glided into the room. Beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, with dark hair and eyes like polished onyx. She wore power like a second skin. Vivian, Dante said, and I heard the warning in his voice. What are you doing here? Council business, darling. Vivian's smile was razor sharp as her gaze slid to me. Though I see you've been busy collecting strays. How unexpected. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. And somewhere in my chest, that new intuition whispered a warning I couldn't ignore. This woman was dangerous, and she already hated me. Lady Vivian Shade, Dante said, his voice carefully neutral. I wasn't expecting council members tonight. Clearly. Vivian's dark eyes swept over me with the precision of a surgeon deciding where to cut. You've been difficult to reach, my lord. I had to come personally to discuss the situation. Situation? Sebastian asked. Marcus Thorne's arrest. Vivian moved into the room with liquid grace, claiming space like it belonged to her. His family is demanding answers. His allies are restless, and rumors are already spreading through the vampire community about why our king's most trusted guard would attempt assassination. Marcus was a traitor, Dante said flatly. Was he? Vivian's smile was poison sweet. Or did someone manipulate circumstances to make it appear that way? It's amazing what mortals can accomplish with the right motivation. Her gaze slid to me, and I felt the weight of centuries of predatory instinct focused on identifying threats. Elena saved my life, Dante said, and I heard steel beneath the words. She's under my protection. How romantic. Vivian's laugh was like breaking glass. The king and his mortal pet. I'm sure the council will find it fascinating. Lady Vivian, the silver-haired vampire, I still didn't know her name, stepped forward. Perhaps we should discuss this matter privately. Oh, I think the mortal should hear this too. Vivian's smile sharpened. After all, she's apparently so important now. Important enough to stay in the king's personal residence. Important enough to attend council meetings. She tilted her head, studying me like a specimen. Tell me, Elena Moretti, do you understand what it means to be under a vampire king's protection? The enemies you inherit? The targets it paints on everyone you love? My mouth went dry. I didn't ask for any of this. No one ever does. Vivian moved closer, and despite every instinct screaming at me to back away, I held my ground. But here you are, a mortal girl with no training, no understanding of our world, thrust into the center of immortal politics. How long do you think you'll survive? A week? A day? How long before someone decides the easiest way to hurt the king is through you? That's enough, Dante said, his voice dropping to a register that made the air feel heavy. Is it? Vivian turned to him, all pretense of courtesy dropping away. You're compromised, Dante. You've allowed sentiment to cloud your judgment. This girl, this nobody, has you so distracted you can't see the danger she represents. The only danger I see is you, threatening someone under my protection in my own home. The tension in the room was suffocating. Sebastian and the other vampires had moved subtly, positioning themselves between Vivian and Dante. And me. Vivian laughed, but there was no humor in it. Very well. I'll convey your position to the council. She started toward the door, then paused, looking back at me. Enjoy your time here, Elena. The king's protection is powerful, but it's not infinite. Everyone close to him ends up the same way, dead or destroyed. It's only a matter of time. She left, but her words lingered like poison in the air. She's right about one thing, I said quietly. I don't understand your world. And I'm putting everyone in danger just by being here. No. Dante's voice was firm. Vivienne is threatened by you because she can't control you, can't predict you. That makes you powerful in ways she'll never understand. But that night, alone in the guest room Dante had given me, I couldn't sleep. The mansion was silent except for distant sounds. Vampires didn't sleep like humans did, and knowing I was surrounded by immortal predators made rest impossible. I lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, and that's when it hit me. The vision. Not like before. Not a glimpse or a fragment. This was complete, devastating, unavoidable. I saw a great hall filled with vampires. Saw Dante standing before them, speaking words I couldn't hear. And then, movement in the shadows. A figure stepping forward with silver flashing in their hand. But it wasn't a stranger. It was someone familiar, someone Dante trusted. The silver blade drove through his chest, right where his heart should be. Dante's eyes widened in shock and betrayal. Blood, impossibly dark, almost black, spread across his white shirt. And I was there, watching, screaming, unable to move or help or save him. The figure turned, and I saw their face clearly, saw their triumph, saw their cold satisfaction as the vampire king fell. It's better this way, they said, for all of us. Dante reached toward me, his hand outstretched, mouth forming my name. I jerked awake, gasping, tears streaming down my face. The vision had felt more real than reality. And the worst part, the part that made my blood run cold, was that I recognized the killer. Someone in Dante's inner circle. Someone he trusted completely. Someone who was going to betray him. And I had no idea how to stop it. I found Dante in his study just before dawn. He stood by the window, watching the first hints of light touch the horizon. For a creature that couldn't survive sunlight, he seemed drawn to it, like standing at the edge of a cliff, testing fate. You should be resting, he said without turning around. Mortals need sleep. I had a vision. The words tumbled out before I could second-guess them. A real one. Complete. Devastating. That got his attention. He turned, and in the pre-dawn light, his features looked almost human, almost vulnerable. Tell me. So I did. I described the great hall, the vampires gathered, the silver blade driving through his chest, his blood, his betrayal, his death. When I finished, my hands were shaking. Someone you trust is going to kill you, I whispered. Someone close to you. I saw their face. But I can't. It's like trying to remember a dream. The details keep slipping away. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then he moved to the liquor cabinet, poured something amber into 2 glasses, and handed me one. Seers were hunted to extinction 300 years ago, he said carefully. The few who survived lost their abilities through the bloodline dilution. What you're describing, complete visions, detailed prophecy, that's ancient power, Elena. Power that shouldn't exist anymore. You don't believe me. I didn't say that. He took a drink, studying me over the rim of his glass. I'm saying I've survived 7 centuries by trusting my instincts and verifying everything. I faced countless assassination attempts, survived wars, plagues, betrayals that would fill libraries. I've learned to be careful. So careful you're alone. The words came out before I could stop them. His eyes flashed with something. Pain, maybe, or recognition. Alone is safe. Alone doesn't leave vulnerabilities. Alone is lonely. I set my glass down, moving closer. I've seen the way you look sometimes, when you think no one's watching. Like you're carrying the weight of centuries and no one to share it with. Because sharing it means watching them die. His voice dropped to something raw. Do you understand what immortality means, Elena? It means everyone I've ever cared about turns to dust while I remain. Every friend, every ally, He stopped himself. Everyone leaves. Death or betrayal, those are the only endings immortals get. Then why save me? I challenged. Why bring me here? Protect me if attachment is so dangerous. Because... He stopped, jaw tight, clearly fighting some internal battle. Because you looked at me like I was worth saving. Not the vampire king, not the ancient predator. Just... me. And I haven't felt that in so long I'd forgotten what it was like. The air between us felt charged, electric. He was close enough now that I could see the fine details of his face. The sharp beauty of it. The slight imperfections that made him real, despite his inhumanity. You are worth saving, I said softly. And I'm not leaving you to face whatever's coming alone. You should. His hand came up, fingers ghosting along my jaw with aching gentleness. You should run as far from me as you can. Find a normal life, a normal man. Grow old and have children and die peacefully in your sleep surrounded by people who love you. Is that what you want? What I want? His thumb traced my lower lip, and my breath caught. What I want is dangerous. Selfish. Wrong. What do you want? I pressed, my voice barely a whisper. For a moment I thought he'd kiss me. His eyes darkened, fixed on my mouth, and the distance between us disappeared to nothing. I could feel the cold radiating from his body, could smell that winter and old book scent, could see my own reflection in his storm-gray eyes. Then he pulled back, turning away with a sound like pain. I want you to be safe, and being with me is the opposite of safe. My heart ached. Not from rejection, but from the loneliness in his voice. The certainty that he was denying himself the one thing he wanted because he believed it was right. Too bad, I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. I'm not going anywhere. You need me. My visions might be the only warning you get. And maybe... I moved to stand beside him at the window, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of fire. Maybe I need you too. Maybe I'm tired of being alone and afraid and feeling like I don't belong anywhere. Dante looked at me, and something in his expression cracked. Elena, I see you, I interrupted. All of you. The king, the predator, the lonely man who's been strong for so long, he's forgotten what it feels like to let someone else be strong for him. And I'm not afraid. You should be, but I'm not. I took his cold hand in mine, and he didn't pull away. So stop trying to protect me from yourself. Let me help you. Let me stay. Outside. The sun fully rose, and Dante stepped back from the window before its light could touch him. But his hand stayed in mine, and for the first time since I'd met him, his smile reached his eyes. You're stubborn. You're difficult. This is a terrible idea. Probably. I squeezed his hand. But I had a vision of you dying. And I'll be damned if I let that happen. So you're stuck with me. For a moment, just a moment, I saw hope in his ancient eyes. And I knew, whatever was coming, whatever danger waited in the shadows, we'd face it together. The phone call came 3 days later. I'd almost forgotten I had a life before Dante's mansion. Before vampires and visions and the weight of ancient eyes watching my every move. But when my phone buzzed with Detective James Sullivan's name, reality came crashing back. Elena? Jesus Christ, Elena. Where are you? James. Hearing his voice made my chest tight with guilt. We'd grown up together, shared scraped knees and school dances, and the terrible grief of losing parents too young. I'm okay. I'm safe. Safe? His voice pitched higher. You disappeared 3 days ago. No one's seen you. Your apartment was broken into, completely trashed, Elena. Someone was looking for something. Or someone. My blood ran cold. Was anything taken? That's what you're worried about? Elena, what the hell is going on? This has something to do with that restaurant, doesn't it? With the Bloodstone family? So he knew. Of course he knew. James worked supernatural crimes for the city police. He'd probably been tracking vampire activity for years. I can't explain over the phone, I said carefully. But I'm safe. Protected. Protected by who? By them? His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Elena, please tell me you're not at the Bloodstone estate. Please tell me you haven't gotten involved with the Vampire King. Silence was answer enough. Fuck. James's exhale was sharp. I need to see you. Face to face. The Riverside Cafe, noon tomorrow. I'll make sure it's secure. I'll have to ask. You'll have to ask permission? His laugh was bitter. Listen to yourself. They're controlling you, Elena. That's what they do. They seduce, they manipulate. They make you think you're special until you're too deep to escape. It's not like that. It's always like that. His voice softened. Please, just meet me. Let me help you. When I brought it up to Dante, his expression went carefully blank. Detective Sullivan is a good man, he said slowly. Honest, as far as mortal law enforcement goes. He's investigated several of my kind, always stayed within legal boundaries. He paused. He also cares about you. Deeply. He's my friend. He wants to be more than that. I can hear it in the way you speak his name. Dante's jaw tightened. But yes, you can meet him. I'll have Sebastian accompany you. Stay out of sight. If there's danger, there won't be. Not from James. It's not him I'm worried about. The cafe was neutral ground. Public. Bright. Filled with the smell of coffee and normal human concerns. James was already there, looking exhausted. Dark circles under his eyes that made me wonder when he'd last slept. Elena, he stood, pulled me into a tight hug. God, I was so worried. I'm okay. Really. I pulled back, studying his familiar face. Brown eyes, perpetual stubble, the scar on his chin from when we'd crashed bikes at 12. You look terrible. Comes with the job. He gestured for me to sit, his eyes scanning the cafe with professional paranoia. Tell me what happened. All of it. So I did. The poisoned wine, Marcus's attack, Dante's rescue. The visions, the seer bloodline, the protection that came with being under the Vampire King's care. James listened in silence, his expression growing darker with each word. And you believe him? He finally said. You believe you're safer with ancient vampires than in protective custody with actual law enforcement? James, they're using you, Elena. He reached across the table, gripping my hands. Whatever they've told you about seers or bloodlines or special abilities, it's manipulation. They're good at it. They've had centuries to perfect making mortals feel important, necessary, chosen. It's not like that with Dante. Dante. James repeated the name like it tasted bitter. You're already using his first name, already defending him. He leaned closer, desperate. Elena, I've seen this before. Mortals who get too close to vampires. They end up dead or turned or worse. There's no happy ending here. Maybe not. But I can't just abandon him. Someone's going to try to kill him, and my visions might be the only warning. Let them kill each other. James's voice rose, drawing stares. He lowered it, but the intensity remained. Let the vampires handle vampire problems. You don't owe them anything. I owe him my life. He saved me when he didn't have to. James sat back, something breaking in his expression. You're in love with him. The words hung between us like an accusation. I barely know him, I protested weakly. That's not an answer. James's smile was sad. I can see it, Elena. The way you talk about him, defend him. You're already gone. I wanted to deny it. Wanted to say he was wrong, that I was thinking clearly, that whatever I felt for Dante was nothing more than gratitude or fascination or survival instinct. But I'd never been good at lying to James. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be sorry. He stood, pulling out his wallet. Just be careful, because when this goes wrong, and it will go wrong, I'll be here. I'll always be here for you. He left without looking back, and I sat alone with cold coffee and the terrible certainty that I'd just hurt one of the few people who'd ever truly cared about me. When Sebastian appeared at my shoulder, silent as a ghost, I didn't even flinch. We should go, he said quietly. Words spreading through the vampire community about the king's mortal companion. Not all of it friendly. As we left the cafe, I caught my reflection in the window. Pale, scared, caught between two worlds and belonging to neither. And somewhere in the city, I knew plots were being woven, enemies were gathering, and the clock was ticking toward the moment in my vision when Silver would pierce Dante's heart and everything would fall apart. The attack came at midnight. I was in the library with Dante, discussing possible suspects from my vision, when the windows exploded inward in a shower of glass and darkness. Vampires poured through, 6, 8, maybe more. Not Dante's people. These moved with feral hunger, their eyes burning red, weapons gleaming silver in their hands. "Mercenaries!" Dante snarled, pushing me behind him. "Vivian!" Sebastian and the others appeared within seconds, and the mansion erupted into chaos. Vampire against vampire. Supernatural speed, making it impossible to track individual movements. Blood splattered across priceless artwork. Bodies crashed through furniture that had survived centuries. "Elena, run!" Dante's voice cut through the violence. "The garage, black SUV, keys in the ignition. Go." "Not without you." A mercenary lunged at me. Dante intercepted, his hand punching through the attacker's chest with brutal efficiency. When he turned to me, his face had transformed. Eyes glowing, fangs extended, blood dripping from his fingers, the predator beneath the gentleman's mask. I should have been terrified. Instead, I grabbed his bloodied hand and ran. We made it to the garage, the SUV roaring to life as more mercenaries flooded the estate. Dante drove with inhuman precision, taking corners at speeds that should have killed us, leaving the burning mansion behind. "Where are we going?" I asked, my hands shaking with adrenaline. "Safe house, mountains, somewhere Vivian doesn't know about." His jaw was tight, fury radiating from him in waves. "She's declared war, made you a target to draw me out, weaken my position with the council. Your home can be rebuilt. You can't." He glanced at me, and despite everything, his expression softened. "Are you hurt?" "No. Terrified, but not hurt." "Good. Stay terrified. Fear keeps you alive." The safe house was a cabin carved into the mountainside, isolated and ancient. Inside, it was surprisingly warm. Fireplace ready with wood, pantry stocked, bed made with fresh linens. "I maintain several locations like this," Dante explained, locking the heavy door behind us. "Contingency plans. Centuries of paranoia paying off." I moved to the window, looking out at the darkness pressing against the glass. "They'll find us eventually." "Eventually, yes, but not tonight." He came up behind me, close enough that I could feel the cold emanating from him. "Tonight we're safe. Tonight we can breathe." I turned to face him, and the walls we'd both been building crumbled. "I'm tired of being careful," I whispered. "Tired of pretending I don't feel this. Elena." His voice was rough, warning and wanting tangled together. "You said what you want is dangerous and selfish. Well, so is what I want." I reached up, touching his face. Cold skin, sharp features, eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. "I want you. Not the king, not the ancient vampire. Just you. I'm 700 years old. You're mortal, fragile, human. I know what I am, and I know what you are. And I don't care." I pulled his face down to mine. "Stop protecting me from yourself and just kiss me." He broke. His mouth crashed against mine with centuries of hunger behind it. And I gasped at the cold, at the sharpness of his fangs, at the desperate way he held me like I might disappear. The kiss was everything. Possession and surrender. Darkness and desperate need. "I haven't felt alive in so long," he breathed against my neck, his lips tracing my pulse. "Centuries of existing, surviving, ruling. Then you looked at me in that restaurant like I was worth saving, and I remembered what it felt like to want something for myself. Then take it," I whispered. "Take me." What happened next was both terrifying and inevitable. He lifted me, carried me to the bed, his cold hands leaving trails of sensation on my heated skin. Every touch was careful despite the hunger in his eyes, like I was something precious he was afraid of breaking. "I need to mark you," he said, his voice strained. "Create a blood bond. It will protect you from other vampires. Let us sense each other." "But Elena," he cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Blood bonds are permanent. If I die, you'll feel it. And if you die, then we don't die." I pulled him down. "Mark me. Make me yours." His fangs pierced my throat with exquisite precision, and the world exploded into sensation. Not pain, pleasure, dark and overwhelming, mixed with something else. I felt his emotions flooding into me. Desire, possessiveness, fear, and underneath it all, love so deep and desperate it took my breath away. When he pulled back, his eyes had darkened to black, and I felt the bond snap into place between us, a golden thread connecting us, letting me feel his heartbeat, his hunger, his absolute certainty that I was his, and he was mine. "Mine," he whispered against my lips. "Yours," I agreed. We made love as dawn approached, and for the first time in 7 centuries, the Vampire King wasn't alone. But as I drifted to sleep in his arms, sated and marked and bound, one thought cut through the haze. The blood bond meant, if my vision came true, if someone managed to kill Dante, I would feel every moment of his death as if it were my own. The vision started the next morning. I woke in Dante's arms, the bond between us humming like a living thing beneath my skin. But the moment consciousness returned, so did the images. Sharp, violent, unavoidable. A great hall lined with crimson banners, hundreds of vampires in formal dress, a dais where Dante stood, addressing the crowd. And in the shadows, movement, silver glinting, Marcus's face, twisted with rage and grief. "For my brother," he whispered. I gasped, sitting upright. Dante was beside me instantly, his cold hand on my back. "Another vision?" "Yes. No, several. They're coming faster now." I pressed my palms against my eyes, trying to hold on to the fragments. "Marcus, he's not working alone. He's angry about someone. His brother. I executed Marcus's brother 50 years ago for treason." Dante's voice was flat. "He tried to start a war between vampire clans. I had no choice. He's been planning this for decades, waiting for the right moment." Another image flashed. Vivian. She's orchestrating everything, using Marcus's grief, manipulating him. I grabbed Dante's arm. The Blood Moon Summit. That's when it happens. When all the clan leaders gather, when you're exposed, vulnerable. Dante went very still. "The summit is in 3 days. You can't go. It's a trap. I have to go." He stood, pacing with predatory grace. "If I don't attend, it shows weakness. The council will question my authority, and Vivian will use my absence to push her agenda. She wants to end the peace treaty, return to the old ways where mortals are prey. Then she wins either way." My voice rose with panic. "You attend and she kills you. You don't attend and she undermines you. There's no good choice." "There's one." He turned to me, his expression grim. "I go. I use myself as bait. But this time we're ready. We know it's coming. We know the players. We can turn her trap against her." The bond between us flared with his certainty, his calculated risk-taking. But it also carried my terror, my desperate need to keep him safe. "I'm coming with you," I said. "Absolutely not." "Yes." I stood, facing him down. My visions are getting clearer, more detailed. At the summit, surrounded by that much vampire energy, I might see exactly when and how they'll strike. I can warn you. You'll be surrounded by vampires who see you as an abomination. A mortal with a seer bloodline, marked by their king. You'll be a target for every traditionalist who wants me weakened. "I'm already a target." I moved closer, placing my hand over his silent heart. "The bond means I feel you. If something happens to you at that summit, I'll feel you die whether I'm there or not. At least if I'm with you, I can help." Dante cupped my face, his thumb tracing my cheekbone. "I've survived 7 centuries by keeping those I care about at a distance, by not giving my enemies leverage. Then it's time to try something different. Because the old way isn't working. Vivian found your weakness anyway. She knows you care about me. Hiding me won't change that." He was silent for a long moment, warring with himself. Through the bond, I felt his conflict. The instinct to protect me battling against the knowledge that I was right. "If you come," he finally said, "you stay by my side at all times. You don't leave my sight. And if I tell you to run, you run. No arguments. Deal." He pulled me against him, his lips finding mine in a kiss that tasted like desperation and acceptance. "You're going to be the death of me," he murmured against my mouth. "Not if I can help it." That afternoon, Sebastian arrived with supplies, formal clothes for the summit, weapons, and news from the vampire community. "Vivian's faction is growing," he reported. "She's been spreading rumors that you're weakened by sentiment, distracted by your mortal pet. Several clan leaders are demanding you address the human question at the summit." "Perfect." Dante's smile was cold. "Let them think I'm distracted. Let them think Elena makes me weak. When they strike, we'll show them exactly how wrong they are." But that night, as I lay in the darkness with Dante's arms around me and 3 days between us and potential death, the visions came again. Stronger, clearer. I saw the exact moment. Saw Marcus moving through the crowd. Saw Vivian's triumphant smile as she gave the signal. Saw the silver blade aimed at Dante's heart. And I saw something else. Something that made my blood run cold. They weren't planning to just kill Dante. They were planning to frame me for it. To make it look like the mortal seer had betrayed the king. Giving Vivian the perfect excuse to slaughter every human who knew about vampires and restart the war. I had 3 days to figure out how to save Dante's life without sacrificing my own. And the clock was ticking. The Blood Moon Summit was held in a cathedral that had been converted into a vampire stronghold centuries ago. Gothic arches stretched toward shadows, crimson banners hung from stone pillars, and hundreds of immortals filled the vast space. Clan leaders, nobles, ancient vampires whose power made the air feel thick and dangerous. I walked beside Dante, wearing a black gown that Sebastian had chosen. Elegant, appropriate, and reinforced with silver thread that would protect against vampire attack. At least, that was the theory. Looking at the sea of red eyes tracking my every movement, I wasn't so sure. "Breathe," Dante murmured, his hand at the small of my back. Through our bond, I felt his steady calm, his absolute control. "They can smell fear. Then they're having a feast," I whispered back. The whispers started immediately. "The mortal, the king's pet, abomination, blood whore." The words slithered through the crowd like poison, but Dante's expression never changed. He moved through the hall like he owned it, which technically he did. Vivian was already on the dais, resplendent in crimson silk, her smile sharp as knives when she saw us. "King Dante, how brave of you to attend, and you brought your little human. How quaint. Lady Vivian." Dante's voice carried to every corner of the cathedral. "Shall we begin? I believe we have much to discuss regarding recent treasonous activities." Vivian's smile didn't waver, but I felt the temperature drop. The summit began with formal proceedings, clan reports, territorial disputes, trade agreements between vampire factions. I stood slightly behind Dante, my psychic senses stretched to their limit, scanning the crowd for threats. That's when I felt it. A familiar presence, moving with purpose through the sea of immortals. Marcus. He shouldn't have been here. He'd been arrested, imprisoned. But there he was, dressed in formal black, eyes burning with decades of grief and rage. And no one else seemed to notice him. Glamour, I realized. He was using vampire magic to hide in plain sight. My hand tightened on Dante's arm, and through our bond, I pushed a wordless warning. His speech never faltered, but I felt his awareness sharpen, his predatory instincts engaging. Then the vision hit me. Not fragmented this time, but complete and devastating. Marcus would strike during Dante's closing speech, but the blade wouldn't be the real threat. Vivian had planted evidence, forged letters, manufactured proof, that I had conspired with Marcus, that I'd seduced the king to weaken him, that I was the traitor. When Marcus attacked, Vivian's people would discover the evidence. The Vampire Council would see me as the threat, the human who'd manipulated their king. They'd execute me for treason, and Vivian would use the scandal to push through her agenda. End the peace treaty. Return to treating mortals as prey. Consolidate power under her rule. Dante would survive the assassination attempt. But I wouldn't survive what came after. The vision showed me my death. Showed me Dante's rage, his grief, his descent into the kind of darkness that would make him the monster Vivian claimed he was. Showed me war between vampires and humans. Cities burning. Everything destroyed. All because I'd saved his life. The question before us, Dante was saying, his voice carrying through the cathedral, is whether we continue the path of coexistence or return to the barbarism of our past. Marcus was moving closer, hand slipping inside his jacket where Silver waited. I had seconds to decide. Stay silent, let Marcus attack, hope Dante survived, but I wouldn't survive the aftermath. The evidence was too perfect, too damning. My death would be slow and public, and it would break something fundamental in Dante. Or scream the warning, expose myself as a target. Trust that Dante could protect us both. Through our bond, I felt Dante's love. Absolute, unwavering, willing to burn the world to keep me safe. And I knew what I had to do. Not because I was brave, but because some things were worth dying for. Don't move! My voice cracked through the silence like thunder. Every vampire in the cathedral turned to stare at me. The mortal who just interrupted the vampire king's speech. Marcus froze, his hand halfway to his weapon. And in that frozen moment, I shouted the only thing that could save us both. Marcus Thorne is here, in the crowd. He's glamored, but he's here, and he's armed with silver. The cathedral erupted into chaos. Marcus's glamour shattered like breaking glass. One moment, the space beside a stone pillar was empty. The next, he stood fully revealed, silver dagger raised, murder in his red eyes, lunging straight for Dante with 5 decades of vengeance behind the blow. Dante moved with impossible speed, spinning away from the dais. The blade meant for his heart sliced across his shoulder instead, and black blood bloomed across his white shirt. The cathedral exploded into violence. Sebastian and Dante's loyal guards surged forward, but Marcus's conspirators, vampires hidden throughout the crowd, revealed themselves. Silver flashed in the candlelight. Ancient vampires who'd lived centuries crashed together with brutal efficiency. "Seize the mortal!" Vivian's voice cut through the chaos. "She's part of the conspiracy. The evidence is in my chambers." "The evidence you planted, you mean?" Detective James Sullivan stepped from behind a pillar, gun loaded with silver rounds aimed at Vivian's heart. "Surprise. Turns out the human police have been tracking your activities for months." Vivian's perfect composure cracked. "You have no authority here. Actually, under the Supernatural Crimes Treaty, I do." James smiled grimly. "You're under arrest for conspiracy, attempted assassination, and about 15 other charges. But I couldn't watch their confrontation, because Marcus had recovered from his failed strike, and his eyes had found me through the chaos. "You," he snarled, moving toward me with predatory focus. "You ruined everything. Years of planning, destroyed by a mortal whore." He was fast, inhumanly fast. But I'd seen this moment in my vision, and I moved a split second before he struck. His blade whistled past my throat, missing by inches. "Elena!" Dante's roar shook the stone walls. Through our bond, I felt his terror, his rage, his absolute inability to reach me through the fighting bodies between us. Marcus grabbed me by the throat, lifting me off the ground with one hand, silver blade raised for a killing blow. "At least I'll take you with me," he whispered. "At least the king will know what it feels like to lose." He never finished. Dante appeared behind him like a nightmare made flesh. Gone was the controlled king, the civilized predator. This was something ancient and terrible. Pure vampire fury unleashed after 7 centuries of restraint. His hand punched through Marcus's chest from behind, emerging with dark blood and something that might have once been a heart. Marcus's eyes went wide with shock, his grip on me releasing as his body went limp. "You don't touch her," Dante snarled, his voice barely human. "You don't even look at her." He threw Marcus's body aside like trash, and then I was in his arms, his cold hands frantically checking me for injuries. "I'm okay," I gasped, my throat bruised but intact. "I'm okay. I saw it coming. You're bleeding." His finger traced a cut on my cheek I hadn't even felt. "He made you bleed." Around us, the fighting was ending. Dante's guards had subdued the conspirators. James had Vivian in silver restraints, reading her rights with grim satisfaction. The vampire council members were emerging from cover, staring at the carnage with varying expressions of shock. But Dante wasn't looking at any of it. He was looking at me, his eyes still black with rage and fear, his shoulder still bleeding from Marcus's blade. "You warned me," he said, his voice rough. "You risked everything to save me." "Of course I did." I touched his face, feeling him tremble under my hands. "I love you, you idiot. Did you think I'd let you die?" Something in his expression cracked. He pulled me against him, burying his face in my hair, and through our bond I felt everything he couldn't say. The terror of almost losing me, the relief that I was alive, the overwhelming love he'd been holding back for fear it would destroy us both. "I love you," he whispered against my temple. "My brave, reckless, impossible Elena. I love you." Then his knees buckled, the silver poison from Marcus's blade finally taking its toll. I caught him as he fell, his head in my lap, his blood staining my dress. "Dante!" Panic clawed at my throat. "Someone help him, please." Sebastian was there instantly, calling for healers, for blood, for whatever could save a wounded vampire king. And I sat in the ruins of the cathedral, holding the ancient predator who'd given me his heart, praying that saving his life wouldn't mean watching him die in my arms anyway. The blood bond saved him. For 3 days, Dante lay in a healing sleep while silver poison worked its way through his ancient system. And for 3 days, I stayed by his side, our bond the only thing keeping him tethered to existence. I felt every moment of his pain, every surge of poison, every slow inch of his body fighting to survive. But I also gave him strength. Through the bond, my mortal vitality, my stubborn, fragile human life, flowed into him. The healers said it shouldn't have worked. Said a mortal's energy couldn't sustain a vampire of his age and power. They were wrong. On the 3rd night, his eyes opened. Storm gray and clear and fixed immediately on me. "Elena," his voice was rough from disuse. "You're still here. Where else would I be?" I was crying, relief flooding through me so intensely I could barely breathe. "You scared me. Don't ever do that again." His cold hand found mine, squeezing weakly. "I'll try not to get assassinated in the future. No promises, though. Comes with the job." I laughed through my tears, and he smiled. A real smile that made him look almost human. The Vampire Council convened the next evening. I stood beside Dante's bed as ancient vampires filed in, their expressions ranging from curious to hostile. Vivian and her surviving conspirators were already sentenced to execution by sunlight. Marcus's body had been burned to ash, but the question of what to do with me, the mortal who'd disrupted centuries of vampire tradition, remained. The human used seer abilities to expose treason, Sebastian reported formally. She risked her life to protect the king. By vampire law, that merits recognition. She's also bonded to our king, an elderly vampire added, her tone disapproving. A blood bond, permanent, unprecedented for a mortal. We acknowledge this presents complications, another council member said carefully. But the peace treaty stands. The human world now knows about the conspiracy, and they're satisfied with our justice. To harm Elena Moretti would be to restart hostilities we've worked centuries to avoid. The silver-haired vampire, I'd finally learned her name was Liana, stepped forward. "I propose we acknowledge Elena as king's consort. Grant her protection under vampire law. It solves the political complications and honors the bond that saved our king's life." The room erupted in debate. Some argued vehemently against giving a mortal such status. Others pointed out the practical benefits. Through it all, Dante remained silent, watching me with an intensity that made my skin flush. When the vote came, it was close, but it passed. I was now, officially, the Vampire King's consort, the first mortal to hold such a title in recorded history. After the council left, Dante and I were finally alone. He'd been healing fast. Vampire recovery was remarkable. And was already sitting up, looking almost like his usual controlled self. "You don't have to accept," he said quietly. "The title, the responsibility, the danger. I can break the blood bond. It would hurt, but it's possible. You could go back to your life. I'd make sure you were protected, wealthy, safe. You could have the normal future you deserve." I stared at him. "You're giving me an out? I'm giving you a choice." His jaw tightened. "You saved my life twice now. You've risked everything for me. But Elena, this life, my life, it's not easy. It's court politics and assassination attempts and immortals who'll resent you forever. Eventually, you'll age while I stay the same. Unless," he stopped himself, "unless I turn," I finished softly. "Unless you choose to become one of us. Immortal, vampire." His eyes searched mine. "I would never force that on you. But if you stay, if you truly want this life with me, eventually you'll have to decide. Grow old and die while I watch, or transform into something else entirely." I moved to sit beside him on the bed, taking his cold hand in my warm one. "You're right," I said. "This isn't the life I imagined. A month ago, I was worried about tips and rent payments. Now I'm apparently royalty in a world I didn't know existed. Elena, I'm not finished." I squeezed his hand. "You're also right that this is dangerous, that people will hate me, that I'll face threats and politics and probably more assassination attempts." I turned to look directly at him. "But here's what you're wrong about. You think I saved you because I'm noble or brave or special. I saved you because the alternative, a world without you in it, was unbearable, and that feeling hasn't changed." His expression softened. Hope and love and disbelief mingling together. "I choose you," I said firmly. "Not the title, not the power, not even immortality. Though we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. I choose you, Dante. The cold, ancient, complicated vampire king who looks at me like I'm sunlight he can never touch. Who's been alone for centuries and forgot what it felt like to be loved." "I remember now," he whispered, pulling me close. "You reminded me. Then stop trying to protect me from yourself and just accept it. We're in this together. Blood bond and all. For however long we have." He kissed me then. Deeply. Thoroughly. With 700 years of loneliness finally breaking open into something like hope. 3 months later, I stood before the assembled vampire court in a silver gown, my hand in Dante's, speaking vows that had been written before my grandmother's grandmother was born. I, Elena Moretti, accept the bond of blood and shadow. I stand as witness, protector, and partner to the vampire king. By my mortal life and awakened sight, I pledge my loyalty to the immortal realm. Dante's vows were simpler. I, Dante Bloodstone, claim Elena Moretti as my consort, my equal, my heart. By my immortal blood and ancient power, I pledge to protect, honor, and love her until the stars burn cold. We sealed the vow with a kiss, and the vampire court, reluctantly, suspiciously, but genuinely, acknowledged me as their queen. Detective James stood in the back, watching with sad eyes but genuine happiness. He'd chosen duty and friendship over love. And while it hurt, he understood. My visions continued, stronger now. I saw threats before they materialized, read intentions in glances, helped Dante navigate the treacherous waters of immortal politics. The seer bloodline that had nearly been my death became my greatest strength. And when Dante asked, years later, if I was ready to make the final choice, to trade my mortality for eternity by his side, I said yes without hesitation. Because some loves are worth dying for, and some are worth living forever for.